about some issues associated with something called the Modifiable Area Unit Problem, or MAUP for short. So the MAUP has to do with how there's an arbitrary aggregation of units, like states or counties, that can actually influence what values we see when we try to map them. For example, this map here shows the number of farms in each state. But of course, some places like Texas, which are big states to begin with, are naturally going to have more farms in them just because they cover more area. And some of the smallest states are not going to have, like West Virginia or Maine or New Hampshire, are not going to have a lot of farms in them because they're small states. Another thing has to do with how many of the things there are there to begin with. So for example, if we want to map the number of vacant houses in a state, that's going to be affected by how many non-vacant houses or how many total houses occur within the state. So once again, places, we can see that this really reflects population. California, Texas, Florida, and New York all have high values here because they all have a lot of houses in their states, so a certain percentage of those are going to be vacant. One way that we can deal with this is by normalizing things. So instead of talking about the number of farms, we can talk about the number of farms per square mile. And then when we divide all of those farms in Texas by all the square miles that Texas has, we get a lesser value than we do in this because it's more normalized. But we can see that now what's really standing out is this big farm area here, and how there's a lot of farms per square mile in all of these states shown in red here. Similarly, if we start with the number of vacancies, but we divide the number of vacancies by all of the housing units, we would get a map that looks more like this. So now we can see that it's not necessarily the high population states that stand out, and in fact, it looks like places like California have a low vacancy rate per the number of houses that they have, at least at this period in time. Another way that we can normalize things is normalize things by something related to the overall country. So in this example here, this is the number of congressional districts in each state. So we took all the congressional districts in California, added those up, and divided those by all the congressional districts throughout the country. We would see that California has the highest percentage in the 10 to 13% range. So this is related to population. We can see Texas and Florida and New York show up high as well, and then all of these states up here show up as very low because they only have a few congressional districts. So now we're able to make more sense out of the map than if we just mapped the number of congressional districts per state. So the problems here, right? The large polygons tend to dominate the map. So big states take up more area, and they're the ones that we're attracted to. And they're prominent and they attract more attention even when their values are low. So in this example of farm densities here, these mountain states really stand out. There's plenty of farming that's going on in Montana and other states here, but they don't have a high value because the states are so big to begin with. So, and in this case here, with the vacancy rates, small states like Maine or New Hampshire or Vermont, they have high vacancy rates, but they don't really stand out on the map because they're relatively small states compared with some of these other big states like California and Texas here. So the way that we can deal with one of these, some ways that we can reduce the visual effect of these is we can start out with a map like of this density of farms, but instead of coloring the map, we could put these graduated symbols on the map so that each symbol represents how many farms are in each of these particular states. And now we can clearly see where the distribution is here, that there's still plenty of farms out here. They nicely compare to each other, but really, you know, they're not that much lower than some other areas here. And another way that we could do it is we could just start with the raw number of farms. We don't want to show it like this because, once again, the biggest ones are just going to tend to be the darkest. But we can use those random dots that we discussed before to attack this MAUP. And we can just we'll put a dot representing 1,000 farms into each state where at least 1,000 farms occur. And in some states, a lot more than that are going to occur. So we're going to put more and more dots in there. And then we get an overall idea of where the farming is taking place in the United States without actually putting on any of the locations of a particular farm within the United States.